Give me your money.
Gran is a character that has a bit of everything. He has very Shoto-like tools with a fireball, a meterless reversal, and a Tatsu kind of move. So that means that he's pretty generally applicable just about everywhere. But where he really shines is his offense. With massive damage, good pressure, and many mind games. Backed up by a generalist kit that isn't just alright, but very strong just about everywhere. Now let's move on to Gran's pros. One of the pros of playing Gran is being a true Shoto. With a very generalist kit, very little flaws, Gran can play the game just about everywhere in every scenario. He is never truly down and out of any game in any position. Another one of the pros of playing Gran is damage. Gran has some of the highest damage potential in the entire game off of just about any hit. Even completely meteorlessly, he can hit some truly baffling numbers and consistently 2-touch even some higher health characters in the game with good starters. And this isn't even mentioning 5U, which at higher charges just keeps adding more and more damage. Another pro of playing Gran is his pressure. Gran's pressure overall is pretty strong. Having a plus on block to him is always going to be an amazing tool. Another pro of playing Gran is his movement. Gran has above average movement speed in just about every way. He's 5th in walk speed, 5th in back walk speed, and 6th in initial dash speed. This allows him to space around his opponent's range and his own range very well as stay on the offensive. And the last pro that I will bring up of playing Gran is his normals. Every single one of Gran's normals is incredible. All of his buttons have amazing frame data, with almost zero drawbacks in range, recovery, or damage. With an 8-frame close heavy, a 7-frame far medium, a 9-frame far heavy, and a frame 7 sweep, all of these feel incredible at every single point in the game. Gran also boasts one of the hardest anti-air jump-in normals in the game with his ridiculous JU. Gran also has a pretty strong anti-air button in 2H that I'll get into a bit later. So all of his normals feel incredible. In every single way a normal could be good, generally Gran's normals are good in those ways. But as with every character, there comes cons as well. Some of the cons of playing Gran include being a true Shoto. With so many other Shoto-type characters in this game, it's hard to stand out as one. And while Gran does have his own places to shine, he also doesn't have a big gimmick like some other Shotos do. He doesn't have Light Wall. He doesn't have Delta Clock. He doesn't have Flame Carpet. He doesn't have a Command Grab. He doesn't have adjustable fireballs. And most notably, he doesn't have a good neutral skip. While on Gran, a very large majority of the time, you just have to play the game better than someone else. And with no ways to really skip matchups, you also have to have a deep understanding of the character that you're playing against and the game as a whole. Another con of playing Gran is kind of seen in the previous con. He has no real way to open someone up. He doesn't have a way to do an instant overhead. He doesn't have any pressure like that. He really, a lot of the times, is just hitting you with a lot of mids and pressure, letting you able to really just block forever. And while the chip damage can add up and safe fireball cancels, it can be plus, he's not opening you up and dealing that damage consistently if you just hold down back. And while there are some downsides of playing very turtily against Gran, he doesn't have a good way of getting through that if you do commit to playing like that. And normally, a character like this, with good plus frames and good pressure, would be allowed to rely on a strike-throw type of game. But strike-throw in this game is much harder to play with a very, very generous tech window of 16 frames, as well as allowing you to tech with just single buttons, making it very, very hard to force damage on someone with Gran. Another downside of playing Gran is his cooldowns. Having only 3 special moves, and generally very short combos, means that Gran can be left without a cooldown for quite some time, even just within his normal combos. And Gran not having his cooldowns in some pretty key moments can hurt him quite a bit. Close Light is just a frame 5 plus 4 option. It's your general pressure starter, as well as safest button up close. You do have to remember that there is a 5 frame window after doing a close light to where you cannot move forward afterwards or start a dash, so do keep that in mind. Close medium is a 6 frame button that's 0 on block. It can also be used as a situational anti-air because it has a pretty decent aerial hitbox. Close medium is a key combo extender in almost all of his routes. Close medium can also be useful as a pressure tool. Against characters who don't have a 5 frame normal, close medium will frame trap into itself. And even against characters who do have a 5 frame normal, close medium will often space itself just outside of close light range, making it still get a solid frame trap. Close medium is also very rewarding when hit meaty, as you can space it to be plus. However, generally it's better in these situations to use close light to safe jab, as close medium will lose to DPs. Close heavy is an 8 frame button, and an 8 frame close heavy is an absolute blessing to have in this game. Being able to always link close light into close heavy on standing without counter hit is a very crucial part of Gran's gameplay, as well as netting him some more damage in a few situations where a 9 frame close heavy wouldn't be able to cut it. Close heavy is also Gran's most rewarding frame trap option. At 8 frames, it'll beat everything except for throw, but the only way that you can get thrown is with full dash momentum. Otherwise, even with just a little bit of momentum, you'll still be able to frame trap the throw. It is the riskiest of his frame traps, as unlike things like close medium, which is 0 on block, and 2M, which is plus on block, and morph lights, which are also all plus on block, close heavy is -3 on block, which is completely safe, but it is the end of your turn. If you want to keep your turn after a blocked close heavy frame trap attempt, you will have to use things like Fireball. However, on a successful frame trap with close heavy, the damage is going to be absolutely absurd, even if you're nowhere near the corner. Close heavy is also Gran's most damaging normal. So obviously, getting as many of these as you can in a combo is pretty important. This will be talked about a bit later, but in order to maximize Gran's damage to its full potential, you do need to be able to recognize when you can substitute close mediums with close heavies, as it really does make a difference, as seen here. Gran's far light is just pretty average. With the same range as Jita's but with less active frames, you might think that it's not the greatest move ever, especially with how it's only +1, just like 2M is. And the range of 2M and far light are pretty similar. However, far light is 1 frame faster, and has less recovery, meaning that in neutral, it still has uses over 2M. Also, another point towards far light is that because of Gran's phenomenal far medium, which we'll get to in a second, Gran has the longest far light confirm on a standing counter hit in the entire game. And talking more about far medium, this is one of the best buttons in the entire game. This kind of range on a 7-frame button is just absolutely ridiculous. This button is critical in basically every single part of Gran's gameplay. There is not a moment in time where having a 7-frame button with this much range is ever not useful. In every single part of the game that a button can be good, far medium is good. It's useful for dash checking, counter poking, spacing traps, and its damage potential off a hit confirm is very high as well. Far heavy is another one of the best buttons in the game. A 9-frame far heavy is absolutely amazing. With decent range, a little bit shorter than far medium, but still pretty good range in its own right. And if you look at this comparison a little bit closer, you'll notice that far heavy hits significantly lower than far medium. This is very important, as there are a lot of things that can low profile under far medium and not far heavy, and that will be brought up in the matchup section later on. This button's a bit of a haymaker to throw out. Its active frames are very long, its damage potential is absolutely massive, but it does have a lot more recovery than his other pokes. Another very important part about far heavy is that it's a heavy. And what I mean by that is, there is a lot of medium buttons in this game that are about the same frame data as far heavy, with far heavy being a 9-frame heavy crush normal. This lets it completely break through quite a few very important tools, like 2B5M. This is a button that you want to learn how to really use, as if you overuse this button, it'll get you punished. But if you underuse this button, you're missing out on a lot of potential of this character. Gran's 2L is a pretty average 2L overall. It's minus on its own, but it's still useful for tech throws, as people generally are waiting for things afterwards. 2L is also very nice for catching people walking. Also important to note that with dash momentum, you can actually get 2L close light, close heavy, which gives Gran the highest damage off of a 2L in the entire game. 2M is your pressure moneymaker. It's plus on block, links into far heavy on counter hit, and has pretty decent range on its own. It also has low recovery, making a decent poke in neutral as well. 2M is also a very active button. People will run into this all the time if you just throw it out in neutral. And if it counter hits something, and most of what's left to talk about with 2M will actually be left to the pressure section later on, as that's where this button really shines. 2H is a pretty good 2H, all things considered. This move does move his hurtbox upwards along with the hitbox, making it so he can lose some interactions that you feel like you should win. But the hitbox on both sides of him is massive, and the reward he gets on hit is even bigger, even without a counter hit. 2H5U is an amazing option select that'll allow you to get optimal combos on both counter hit and non-counter hit without needing to confirm if you actually get the counter hit. As with 2H5U, on non-counter hit, you can get a combo with just releasing the 5U. But with counter hit, you can cancel the 5U and get a heavy instead. Or even something like this. 2H is also a very important combo extender in Gran set routes, as it gives him the most hit stun out of all of his normals available, allowing him to do things like 2H 5U, and some more niche options. And finally, 2U. This is one of the best sweeps in the entire game, if not the best sweep in the entire game. Frame 7 with a quite good range, and an absurd low profile that'll go under just about everything, including fireballs, long-range pokes, and even some goofy stuff. With sweeps being special cancelable in this game, you can keep this button completely safe with a fireball cancel as well, or a cancel into 214L. On hit, it provides a safe jump that can even cross up in the right situations. Weighing when to let this button rip is a very important part of Gran's game plan, as it's one of your best Abare tools. This can catch people using moves that you can low profile underneath, it can catch people trying to walk back and forth, or even just some bad pressure where they did a bad reset. This is the button that you want to look for. However, if you do choose to not cancel it to go for the safe jump, it is -12 on block, making it so that they can 6XL in and get a very free punish, and if they're closer, something even stronger. It also has a lot of recovery frames, making it very easy to whiff punish. Over-abusing this very strong tool will just get you killed. But like with Far Heavy, a strong tool must be used to be strong. Using it will allow you to steal corner a ton. Using it will allow you to catch people walking a ton. Not using the tool is not the way you want to go. Don't be scared of using your best tools just because they have flaws. JL is a pretty just bog standard JL. There is nothing notable about this move. It doesn't hit cross up. The only times you'll really be seeing this move are on super close air-to-airs and calling out specific things like Grimnir, Narmaya, and sometimes just people jumping out of the corner where you wouldn't be able to anti-air them otherwise. JM is useful as a longer range air-to-air and as a super late cross-up button, but generally worse than JU at that purpose. It is completely useless as a standard jump-in, completely eclipsed by every single other button in this use. JH is a pretty far downward reaching hitbox that can beat some late anti-airs that people go for. This is also Gran's most damaging jump-in at 1000 damage, meaning this is what you should use as your basic jump-in button and on safe jumps. JU, this is the moneymaker button, with an absolutely just absurd hitbox all around Gran. This is what you'll be throwing out a large majority of the time when you jump. A massive arcing hitbox that hits in front of him, directly below him, and behind him lets you be able to time this button for some weird cross-ups. Meaning if someone doesn't use the block button against your basic jump-ins, they can get smoked. It does have a bit of a slow startup, and mostly hits below him, meaning it's basically completely useless as an air-to-air. But otherwise, you'll be pressing this button basically every single time you jump. Alright, let's talk about his dash rolls. You don't need me telling you how good 6XL is. It's 6XL. It's not one of the best ones, but it's a 6XL all the same. 6XM is a low-hitting 6XM with very good range. It's very useful to catch people walking out of your range that you can't really get with a 2L or 2U. It scores a knockdown and some screen positioning, allowing you to approach and start your game plan. It is punishable at -8, but it can be spaced to make safe against every single character in the game. though it is much harder against some characters. 66H is a medium risk, high reward tool that can completely crush dash checks predicting you to 6XL. It's also useful when it's available as a punish mid-screen, as it can get you some more corner carry than just doing triple attack itself. 66H also forces crouch, allowing for some unique crouch links that Gran has. However, 66H is not Gran's optimal starter in a large majority of situations. Compare the damage here versus here. Just something to keep in mind. And this isn't a normal, but there isn't really a good place to talk about this otherwise. 5. Now, I already made a video going extensively into 5U specifically as a corner pressure tool. So if you haven't watched that video yet, go watch that now. I will be mostly skipping over basically anything that is included in that video in this one, as there's no real reason to when that video already exists. That's not all 5U is capable of. 5U is a very good combo extender, even without charge. It's also nice as a combo ender as well, since it does pretty good damage. And with charge, it becomes an even better combo extender. As well as also becoming a combo starter. Power Raise is an incredibly versatile tool that is integral to a lot of Gran's gameplay, as well as giving him somewhat of a gimmick that he otherwise lacks. Being able to get charge is pretty important, as if you're able to threaten someone into allowing you to get charge, you can get to level 3. And with level 3, it has absolutely absurd damage. By itself, it does 2,500 damage. Complete body invincibility. Keep in mind that the invincibility is not instant, so using it that way is a little difficult. Also gives you very strong mid-screen combos. And can sometimes just win you the round on the spot. Knowing how to get charge, when to use the charge, and really abusing its pressure capabilities as shown in the 5U zone video will get you a ton of mileage on this character. Keep in mind for combos, and this will probably get brought up again, that 5U will combo off of heavies, triple attack finisher. It can also combo off far medium, but it needs either a counter hit or crouch. Now onto Gran's special moves. Gran only has 3 special moves, but all of them are very useful to have. You'll never really feel like something is missing from his kit, despite having less special moves than other characters. Reagan. This is Gran's Fireball. Light and Heavy are both very simple, basic Shoto fireballs, with Medium having a strike on its startup that can destroy most non-ultimate projectiles. Light Reagan Lave is usually used as a safe cancel and a long-ranged poke, as per usual with the Shoto Fireball. It can be spaced to even be plus from far normals. On counter hit, it scores a knockdown, which is very useful in a few matchups. Medium Regenlave is a multi-purpose tool that you can find a lot of uses for. Its main purpose, obviously, is the fireball deletion. However, keep in mind the strike hitbox that does this is 13 frame startup, meaning that you kind of have to use it as a predictive thing in close range, and for faster fireballs, it's nearly impossible to react with to do so. But that's not the only thing the strike is useful for. The strike is active for 10 frames and has a clash level of 2, letting it crush things like 6XL and clash with 6XM. And why this is important is because at round start, both 6XL and 6XM are usual options that you will face. And a strike of 2d6M will completely beat 6XL while clashing with 6XM. Because of this, Medium Regenlave is strangely a pretty decent round start option because of all its properties. It beats instant 6XL, it beats instant 6XM, and it beats round start Fireball, as well as taking space against people who like to back up. However, keep in mind that Medium Regenlave has a pretty long total animation time, making it very weak to jumping over the Fireball even on reaction to the startup. As for destroying projectiles, it's quite useful in some matchups, and almost entirely useless in others. There are a few projectiles that can be a little inconsistent with at getting fully destroyed before the fireball comes out, and as I mentioned before, it being a frame 13 strike means that using it on reaction at the proper time is either really hard or just plain impossible depending on the move and the range that you're trying to beat. The more you get used to it, the more places that you'll find to use Medium Regenlave, but it's definitely a little bit strange of a move for a fireball. Heavy Regenlave is another very standard tool, acting as a 3-hit fireball that is plus on block and extends combos both on the ground and in the air. Even point blank, it's plus 7 on standing, letting you link into far medium even outside of the corner. All of Gran's fireballs knock down on counter hit, however, because of the multi-hit properties of the heavy version, this allows you to get some more follow-ups that you wouldn't normally be able to get mid-screen. And within 2.0, the knockback of the heavy fireball has been reduced, allowing for even more consistent follow-ups off of this. Heavy Regenlave is basically always useful, in just about every matchup, and as such you shouldn't waste it. Without it, you lose a lot of combo potential, and don't have access to your best pressure reset. It is important to keep in mind that all 3 fireballs have the exact same travel speed once they are actually out, making them terrible at zoning. Mostly entirely because they are a very easy one-time beats-all dodge. However, that's not really what they're used for. As said before, they are mainly mid-range long pokes, or safe pressure options. Trying to use them from long range in a few matchups is kind of useful, namely things like Fairy. But most of the time, if you're throwing out fireballs from this distance, you're really not going to be seeing much use out of them. On to Overdrive Surge. This is the move that Gran is known for. Crucial in every single part of his play, and every version has completely different functionality. Light Overdrive Surge is a mid-range lunge. It can be chained of different versions of medium and heavy on hit, and on whiff. Light into medium is mostly used as mid-screen filler when there's no other options available. Light into heavy is almost entirely outclassed by just raw heavy, as it does significantly less damage and scales the combo significantly more. Light into heavy also gives a worse wall bounce in the corner. If you're point blank in the corner, you can only get close light afterwards, whereas normally you'd be able to get close medium. seeing an even larger damage loss. However, this is not an entirely useless tool. It is very helpful if you aren't confident in your hit confirming, because this gives you a lot more time to confirm your hit. Also, another point towards light into heavy is that at the absolute tip of far medium, Overdrive Surge does not connect properly. This is where light into heavy really shines, as it's able to make that range without dropping the combo. And this is important because Gran does have a few combos which do put someone exactly at that range. Light Overdrive Surge is also generally safe on block. It's usually -5, but can be spaced to be better. And even with it being -5, it's still out of range of close lights. So if you are unconfident in your ability to hit confirm into 214H, and you are consistently getting punished for that, 214L can save you. However, since it's such a massive loss in damage, and damage is what Gran is mostly known for, I would recommend getting more used to really using heavy Overdrive Surge instead of light into heavy. Light Overdrive Surge also sees use as a pretty niche neutral tool. Notice that from round start, 6XL won't quite reach, a quick dash far medium won't reach. You know what will reach? Light Overdrive Surge. This gives Gran a decently quick option to reach ranges that he normally isn't able to. And this also allows you to have plenty of time to hit confirm it. And this is especially threatening in the corner against a few characters, allowing you to get a full combo off of a pretty long range option. Seeing how it's also safe on block, this is surprisingly a very nice neutral tool. Using Light Overdrive Surge like this is kind of strange and not all that useful in a few matchups, but it's still something to keep in mind. I'm not actually the one that is really able to talk about this as much, as I don't really do this at all. But there are a few Gran players who really make the most out of using it like this. Medium Overdrive Surge has Gran prepare for a bit and then launch himself forward foot first. The close hit earns a knockdown, whereas the far hit leaves them standing. The startup is reactable, even from up close, meaning that while it can be a useful neutral tool, as it could be spaced to be made plus, it's entirely reactable, especially at this range, meaning that you can get DP'd straight through it if someone is looking for it. And up close, it is terribly unsafe on block. On the ground, it also has no combo potential. This may make Medium Overdrive Surge feel like it doesn't have too many uses, but it's kind of hidden in the numbers where it's good at. As already mentioned, it can be made not just safe, but plus on block. And again, this is kind of risky to do, because at this range where it can be made plus on block, someone can just walk out of range. And it also has reactable startup, meaning that someone can just DP straight through that. However, against slower characters, spacing it is a lot easier, and when someone is trapped in the corner, it's even easier since they don't have anywhere to go. Another thing about Medium Overdrive Surge, and Heavy for that matter, is that it's attack level 3, meaning it will crush anything that isn't a Heavy, letting you blow through quite a few pokes. On counter hit, the close hit will net you a wall bounce. This wall bounce is incredibly similar to the one that you'll see with counter hit 5U. The late hit will still leave them standing, but it will be even more plus. It being such a high clash level, and on counter hit with the late hit giving you combos, even mid-screen, lets it be quite a threatening poke in some unexpected spots. Getting a good feel of the range of Medium Overdrive Surge, and when your opponent likes to do certain things, will allow you to get in a little bit more than often than you think with the boot. But the downsides are all still there, and it should be used very carefully. Overusing of this tool will just get you punished and exploded. Medium Overdrive Surge is also your main meterless ender when the close hit is available. as it has the most corner carry out of usually all of his routes and scores a knockdown instead of an air reset. Medium Overdrive Surge can also be used as a niche combo extender in air combos, as you're able to combo off of it with certain connects. But this only really works when you're able to connect with 2H. However, doing so doesn't actually get you that much damage as opposed to just doing heavy Overdrive Surge, especially since you need a 2H to really make it work. However, there are some pretty stylish and unconventional things that you can do with this. I would still recommend just keeping it a bit basic, as you'll see more in the combo section. Now, Heavy Overdrive Surge. Heavy is what Overdrive Surge really is. Clocking in at a massive 1800 damage with the simple input, which is the same as Enchanted Lands. Fully charged. Comboing off of all of Gran's normals incredibly consistently. Comboing off of all of his normals incredibly consistently. And scores a wall bounce from quite a good distance away from the corner. It really is everything that you'll want as your main combo starter. Learning the distance from which Heavy Overdrive Surge will get the wall bounce from is incredibly useful for maximizing the overall damage per interaction you really are doing, as well as recognizing the distance from the wall that you did Heavy Overdrive Surge and adjusting some of your normals accordingly, as you can get even more damage if you do it from a bit further away. Quick little editor note here that I wanted to add in at some point. So this little log in the background of this stage that I always pick against everyone, this is how you know you're the distance from the corner that you need. If Gran is like standing with his back right at the tip of it, you'll reach the corner. This is why I play on this stage, because I can see I'll reach the corner from here, just barely. Like I just like do that a lot. This is a nice stage to like use to like get the distance from the corner in mind. Some other stages also have some nice things with that. You're mostly going to be playing on Coliseum. One of the biggest distances that you can look at is this guy in the background. As soon as you can see him behind Gran, you'll reach the corner. This like guy right here, the first one in the lineup in the back, like the one that's closest to you, that's not like the main center one. As soon as you can like see him behind Gran, right there, that's when you'll reach the corner. Which is also useful on the other side as well, because like it applies in the same way. As soon as you can see him behind Gran, the sword, you're reaching the corner now. Just something I thought I'd throw in. Get used to finding places on the map to like help you out with the distances. Trying to like really get a feel of where you are in screen space is not the most consistent thing. Sometimes actually looking at the screen is good for knowing where you are. Anyway, later, I guess. You can also space Heavy Overdrive Surge to be safe, but it's a bit worse than Medium at that. Sure, it is a little bit faster, but it's also one frame worse on block, meaning that +1 that you can get pretty consistently with Medium is going to end up as 0. And you can get +1, but the spacing on it is very precise and very inconsistent, and I wouldn't recommend using it like this. Another reason not really do this, as keeping Overdrive Surge's cooldown ready is very important for Gran's damage output, as it is your most damaging meterless option, period, outside of like fully charged 5U. And finally, Gran's last special move, Rising Sword. Rising Sword is a very, very good reversal, but doesn't have that much utility outside of that. Light Rising Sword is a frame 6 button that has level 4 Crush, that can also be used as an anti-air, even if it's not unblockable, because it's so quick. It can also be used as a poke against long-range characters. Although using it like that is not entirely recommended, as it does have 42 total frames. Light also recovers in time to give you some weird setups in the corner. But other than that, Light isn't the most useful. Medium Rising Sword is a 3-hit, 9-frame reversal. And if you know much about Rising, you'll know that those two things combined make it one of the best reversals in the entire game. The 3 hits allows it to beat things like Basaraga armor. And 9 frames is the absolute fastest a reversal can be, without costing meter. It's generally pretty bad as an anti-air. Only the absolute first hit is air unblockable. It's still nice to have in a pinch since it's so fast, but it doesn't really need that. Medium DP is your go-to option to beat burst options, some fake safe jumps that lose to 9-frame DPs such as Iscariot. And because it's 9 frames, it's also the easiest to mess up a safe jab against, though you really shouldn't count on this. Medium Rising Sword is and will be forever one of the best reversals, if not the singular best reversal in the entire game for all these properties. But it is not useful for really anything but that. Another nice thing about your best reversal being on a medium DP is that the cooldown is significantly shorter than if it's on HDP. Heavy Rising Sword has Gran do a rise, and do a second rise afterwards. The entirety of the first rise is completely air unblockable. HDP is also a bit weird at times. Normally it has 3 hits into 3 hits, but if any of the hits of the first rise whiff, they get put on the second rise. This actually lets Gran get some weird combo extensions, but they're all pretty inconsistent. It's more so something that you should see when it happens than something you should be going for. This allows Gran to get some pretty damaging links afterwards, but it's not the most consistent unless you have a setup for it, and even then, you're usually only getting a close medium anyway, making it not actually entirely useful. But it is useful in chip out scenarios, as if someone tries to spot dodge the first hit, all 6 hits will come out on the second rise, making it impossible to spot dodge the second part. As already mentioned, you can combo off of heavy DP, but it is a little bit consistent. Normally if you don't have a setup for it, it can just fall out entirely. And this is not like Jita's DP, where you can use sweep into DP to basically guarantee a combo afterwards. You need to know your heights a lot more. However, once you do know your setups and the heights that you can generally get something at, it can be pretty consistent. HGP is also one of his best combo enders, as it has the longest animation out of anything he can do, meaning that he can actually get his cooldowns back at the end of his combos, which otherwise he wouldn't really be able to do. Even though it can anti-air consistently, you don't really want to be doing it that often, as its long cooldown and no reward on mid-screen hit means that you're putting yourself at a pretty big risk against characters that have an air stall of some sorts. Its hitbox also isn't amazing, so really getting used to using 2H for these kinds of anti-airs is better. On to Gran's ultimate skills, and Gran doesn't have the best selection of these. With only one standout in Overdrive Surge, a large majority of the time Gran's going to be saving meter for a super cash out just because of how high his damage is with that. Or, if you aren't in the corner, getting mid-screen damage and corner carry with Ultimate Overdrive Surge. However, they do have their uses, so let's talk about them. Ultimate Reagan Lave. Absolutely bog standard Ultimate Fireball. Slower than some other ones at frame 11 to come out. It is a screen clear that scores a hard knockdown anywhere on screen. It is terrible to use anywhere in a combo if you aren't using it as a starter. In the corner, it gets a wall bounce, which does let you get a link into a few things. And this is pretty nice to have. However, trying to use Ultimate Fireball mid-combo is just going to result in an overall loss of damage, even if linked into. It's also pretty useful as a longer range whiff punish option that can score a knockdown in situations where you wouldn't really be able to get much else. You'll mostly be using this move just as a general screen clear against some characters that can just fill the screen with projectiles. And also, because it gets that wall bounce in the corner, it can be even more useful against them in the corner if they're trying to use the projectiles to escape the corner. But otherwise, it's not that good of a move. Even compared to other Ultimate Fireballs, it's lacking in startup, travel speed, damage, utility. It's not great. Ultimate Overdrive Surge has Gran launch himself significantly quicker than the other versions, with its quickest startup being frame 11. It also moves even faster across the screen. On hit and block, it'll have a follow-up that ground bounces, allowing for mid-screen combos. This version also has very little recovery on whiff, meaning that if you try to evade it on reaction, you will get punished. However, this move does have a pretty big downside compared to all the other versions of Overdrive Surge. You are always -6 on block, left basically entirely point blank, making him easily punishable by the entire cast, meaning that this is not something you can throw out mindlessly. This is not a neutral skip option. On block, this gets you killed. Ultimate Overdrive Surge sees a lot of use in combos, especially mid-screen. It's really the only ultimate skill that you'll be linking into for damage purposes, because Ultimate DP ends the combo immediately and doesn't refund, and Ultimate Fireball doesn't even do that much damage and only gives you more combo in the corner, for which Heavy Fireball will actually give you more damage overall. Ultimate Overdrive Surge is also very nice for mid-screen damage and corner carry, and it's really the only thing that you can do without investing BP to really get anything of use mid-screen. With Ultimate Overdrive Surge, Gran's mid-screen actually gets quite a big fix. He gets a lot of damage, and he gets significantly more corner carry, and getting someone to the corner is really what you want as Gran. Ultimate Rising Sword is an 8-frame DP that beats safe jabs. Even though it is not very notable and pretty niche, it does have a few uses, such as closing out a round when super isn't available. But since Gran has a 9-frame DP with medium Rising Sword, you're rarely going to be using this as an actual reversal. On hit, it gives an auto-time safe jump. Even if you don't get the full connect, you still get that. It's also not counter hit punishable like the other DPs are. So maybe that's something that you think about in the moment, but not really too important, as you're still gonna get killed for having someone block your DP. On to supers. Both the Gran supers are not the greatest. He can't use his supers like the others can, mainly only being able to use them as big finishers in the corner to just nuke someone's health bar, which is where they are very strong. Tempest Blade. Tempest Blade is generally Gran's best super. It confirms off fire buttons even at max range. However, it loses some damage and doesn't get the BP drain unless you get a close connect. It is actually the fastest strike super in the entire game at frame 11. This allows him to link into super with ease, where a lot of other characters don't really get this option. His hitbox is actually quite nice too, allowing it to serve as a pretty niche anti-air that can completely destroy some air stalls as well as some higher up Zeta pogos. It also gives an auto-timed safe jump on hit. Even if you don't get the close hit. Eternal Edge is a follow-up to Tempest Blade. It is only available when SSBA is available. It can be done of basically any connect from Tempest Blade, barring a very late hit. Even if Tempest Blade doesn't get the close hit, Eternal Edge will still take a BP. However, then you're basically using an SSBA to only take 1 BP. This also gives an auto-time safe jump on hit, except this one wall bounces and leaves them point blank on screen no matter the screen positioning. Eternal Edge has a very weird property. It actually does more damage than SSBA. However, it only does more damage than SSBA if Tempest Blade takes them to 0 BP or they are already at 0 BP. Compare the damage of SSBA and now Eternal Edge. Eternal Edge does do less damage in this scenario, but if we lower the BP down to either 1 or 0, you'll see that Eternal Edge is actually doing more damage now. Something to keep in mind when closing out rounds. Gran's SSBA, Catastrophe, is a fireball super that is quite bad. 13 frame startup compared to Tempest Blade's 11 makes it a lot harder to link into. It also travels very slowly as a fireball. It only gets the animation on close connects, and while the range is pretty nice, hit confirming into it is nearly impossible. Catastrophe can be used to win fireball wars on reaction, but only at mid-range. It travels so slow that a lot of the times opponents will just fully recover before it can even reach them. It also has some connection issues in the corner. Just look at this. It can take the BP and still have you fall out. It's weird. As already mentioned, since it is 13 frame startup, it is harder to link into, meaning that you do have to adjust some of your routes, and maybe even get less damage to even have it available. Meaning that a lot of the times when you're doing a Link super route, using Tempest Blade for safety is completely fine, as you're not even losing that much damage. Recognizing the height at which Catastrophe will actually work in these combos is nice, and will secure you a few kills where otherwise you wouldn't, but generally using Tempest Blade Eternal Edge for safety won't really make you miss out on much. So if you're ever unsure on the height, just use Tempest Blade instead. Another thing about Catastrophe is that it does not give an auto-time safe jump, instead giving a super jump.
Now on to Gran's neutral game. If you haven't picked up so far, Gran's neutral game is very strong overall. With his fantastic buttons, amazing movement speed, he can set the pace of the match very quickly and efficiently. However, because of his simplicity, he can really struggle to deal with a few long-range tools. You need to be aware of longer range opponents and be able to wiggle in and out of their range while also threatening to be able to approach. And against projectile zoners, you kinda just have to stay patient and find spots to slowly work your way in, or be able to find an ult fireball to score a hard knockdown to be able to get in. Or just walk into the corner in general with Gran's threat range and speed. Gran's most important task in neutral is to push someone to the corner, as that's where he gets access to his very explosive damage, as well as his very strong pressure. Threatening space and pushing someone to the corner, even if you aren't actively trying to hit them, is the primary thing that you should be doing. All the time that you are gaining space and moving forward, you are also gaining meter, which is another very important thing in this game. And all of that leads to Gran mostly being an aggressor in a lot of matchups and situations, because he has the tools to do it. However, Gran is also very capable at not being the aggressor. His movement speed also applies to his backwalk speed. And with his range and frame data, he can really play patiently and wait for someone to try to come to him and make a mistake. Gran is also very strong at playing the whiff punish game and stuffing approaches. Being able to play as both the aggressor and the patient one means you can adapt to matchups and players in particular, and really find a mix of hot and cold kind of playstyle, really leaning into whichever side that you need at the moment. And once you get them to the corner, this is where Gran's pressure is really going to start shining. Gran's pressure is built around bullying people with plus frames, big normals, good movement speed, and the threat of his massive damage, as well as some mind games, especially with things like 5U. Again, as I've already said, anything relating to 5U in pressure in particular, go watch 5U Zone if you haven't, as I will be briefly talking about it here, but it's not going to have as big of a focus as it did in that video. But there is so many details that you can go over within 5U Zone. So I again, watch that video. A lot of Gran's pressure is meant to scare people. People will play a lot more scared if you can consistently get as much damage as you can off every single hit. So being confident with your hit confirms is going to be really important, and this applies a lot to his pressure. As if they're more scared of you getting that much damage off of any random connect, they'll allow a lot more pressure resets and really allow you to just keep repeating your pressure and always stay plus, as well as giving more opportunities for you to charge 5U. A lot of Gran's tools lend themselves to pressure really well, but let's talk about each of the really standout ones individually. Close Light, as it's +4 and can safe jab non-ultimate DPs, this will be your go-to starting pressure and Oki tool. There's a 5-frame lockout after Close Light before you can walk forward or input a dash, making it so you can't just do Close Light, Close Light, Close Light pressure. This means that Close Light really is best when used as a point-blank pressure tool once you're able to get back in on a reset, or as your Oki tool. And because it's +4, even if you can't really get a true reset with it and stay plus, it's still very threatening, because what are they gonna do? Mash on +4? Close Light also has the ability to confirm into close heavy at pretty deep ranges. If you're able to do this consistently off of just a raw hit confirm in pressure, you're going to explode someone even just for getting hit by lights. On to Far Light. This is a decent range poke that can keep people at bay pretty well. It may seem outclassed by 2M, but because Far Light is 1 frame faster, it still has its uses. This is one of the best things at dash checking just for how fast it is, as well as being able to counter hit confirm into far medium at basically any range. But outside of being 1 frame faster, it generally is outclassed by 2M in basically every scenario. On to the last light, 2L. This is your quickest low. It's minus on block, but as people are usually expecting you to chain it into close light or far light, they're generally not going to try to press here. It could be a pretty unexpected tick throw option as well. Generally though, 2L is best used to catch people who are trying to walk back and forth without needing to commit to 2U. Onto 2M, this is one of your main pressure tools. A plus on block medium with not much pushback, and confirms into far heavy on counter hit. This is where a lot of your pressure mind games are coming from. This button is perfect at setting up tick throws. Get a reset off of, or just fish for counter hits. You can also catch people dashing just because of how active this button is. However, it is only +1, so if you continually leave predictable gaps in your pressure, you can get pretty easily challenged. But overall, this is an incredible button to have. 6XL. Dude, it's 6XL. You don't need me telling you how broken 6XL is in pressure. Everyone has it, and you know it's going to be broken. But it is important to point out where exactly the gaps are coming from and how much of a gap you're leaving in your pressure when you are going for 6XL resets. After 2M, you are +1. 6XL, from there is a 9 frame option, because you do need to dash for 1 frame before inputting 6XL. So with that, 2M into 6XL is an 8 frame gap. And quite a few things leave Gran around +1. There's Far Light, there's 2M, and there's also Space Fireball, with +1 being one of your more consistent windows on that. So keeping in mind that 6XL is a 9 frame option after these, that means that it leaves an 8 frame gap in between them. This is pretty risky to challenge, but every single character in the game has ways of dealing with that, even with like mediums. So just know, don't be too predictable with your 6XL resets. But also, it's 6XL. You're gonna use it a lot. You don't need me telling you that. As just mentioned, Space 236L will be about even to +2, depending on the range of where you hit far medium generally.
After Light Fireball, generally, even if you are a little bit plus, unlike things like Far Light and 2M, you don't really have a frame trap here. So it's a lot more predictable to 6XL after this Fireball, as otherwise you wouldn't be able to continue the pressure. And while this is obviously advantageous for you, you just want to make sure that you're not predictably 6XLing in, when you could also be trying to poke their poke out. Also, H-Fireball, while costing a cooldown, will always be one of your best pressure resets, as it leaves you massively plus, able to get back in for free every single time. This also allows you to threaten things that you wouldn't really be able to otherwise, as people are a lot less likely to challenge H-Fireball compared to Light Fireball. Ultimate Fireball also has a little bit of use, though it is a lot more specific. You can use it to call out some mid to long range options, and it has pretty good reward in the corner. And finally, 5U. Again, you should watch 5U Zone, as that really delves into the specifics of 5U as a pressure tool. However, there's a few things that I'll mention here, because it is really important part of your pressure. 5U is one of your most important mind game tools, as the mix-up between instant release, instant cancel, charge, and delay release, which I didn't really touch on too much within the 5U Zone video. All of these are incredibly important at adding to the mental stack. And also, being able to find someone's timing on when they generally like to try to challenge 5U, and then delay releasing into that timing, is so useful. 5U is very, very important when used alongside all of your other tools. It cannot be your main go-to in pressure, as that will give up a ton of turns. But adding it alongside of all your other tools can sufficiently add to the mental stack of your pressure that will allow you to get more resets, get more openings, and whatnot. And one of the most important things about combining all of these tools together is staying unpredictable while also staying threatening. If you start to be too predictable, then you'll allow them to check your resets a lot more. But if you don't stay threatening all the time, they won't feel nearly as much need to let you get those resets, and they'll be able to do things like walk themselves out of the corner, maybe throw out a poke and get some damage and a knockdown and get themselves out of the corner, and whatnot. You need to stay threatening and also unpredictable so that you force them to want to take the resets, and then when they do want to challenge it, it's not on a predictable spot and they get it wrong. Once you're outside of closer ranges and you've maybe ended your pressure with something like a 226L or just like a Far Light or 2M, you can also choose to kind of back off and play a more spacing trap game. People expecting you to try to reset can be caught by you doing things like Far Medium, Far Heavy, or 5U. These tools are especially good at catching people trying to 6XL out of the corner and take their turn back when they think that your pressure has completely ended. And with Gran's great frame data, movement, and range, he can play this kind of range phenomenally, especially with his massive damage as a huge deterrent to try to make people scared. On to Gran's defense. Gran's defense overall is pretty strong, just by manner of all the tools he has, all combined at once, making it hard to keep him locked down for long periods of time. He has one of the best, if not the best, meterless reversal in the entire game. He has multiple long and very quick buttons. He has this godforsaken sweep, and a really good movement speed. All of these combined allow him to find ways to poke out of the corner, as well as just kind of walk himself out pretty often. The only thing that he doesn't have compared to other characters to escape the corner is a unique movement option. But he doesn't really need it. All of his tools combined already give him phenomenal defense, and he also just has some of the biggest robbery potential off the game just off of these. And now what a lot of people are probably here for, the combo section. This combo section, from now on, will be completely uncommentated. There is a document in the description that will be going at the exact same rate as the video, with all the explanations and nuances of all the combos written in the document. I felt like this would be the easiest way to display all the information and follow along without extending this video for too much longer. So I would recommend opening the document and following along with the video alongside the document, and then using that document to reference back when you need it, instead of needing to go all the way back to the video and find a certain combo.
And that's going to be the end of the guide. Originally, I was going to have a section for matchups where I go into a little bit of detail on each individual matchup and give like some important things like look out for Light Wall, you can't cancel into 5e nearly as much, look out for Belial 2L because you can't do 2M against him and stuff like that, but ended up being a lot more work than I originally thought it would be, so I'm going to push that out to be like its own video or part of probably like more of a stream project. Like if you ask me about a matchup on stream, I'll just like talk about it. You ask me about it on Twitter, I'll just like talk about it. But that's probably the most that I'm going to do for that kind of thing. I don't really think I'm the person who can go into deep dives on every single matchup in the game. I don't think I'm that knowledgeable about the game, and I don't want to feed misinformation to anyone. I want to stick to what I know. So maybe I get help from a bunch of other players of different characters and stuff like that to make that kind of video, but that's not a right now thing, and instead the rest of the guide is all here. I'd like to really thank everyone that's been coming out to the Gran community. The Gran Discord's really been growing, and I really appreciate everyone in it. You guys have been really great, you've been very supportive. A few of them helped me out with formatting the combo doc as well. They're listed in the doc itself, so make sure you give them some love as well. I couldn't have done that without them, because I am not very good at doing that kind of thing. But otherwise, thank you for watching. As usual, if you have any questions on if you have any questions on Gran in general, I'd recommend joining the Gran Discord. Link will be in the description. I'm always down to help people out, and that's really why I wanted to make this. So, thanks again for watching, and have a nice night or day, whatever time it is for you. And I also know that Combo Breaker is soon, so hopefully this guide. Hopefully this guide makes a free-to-play player do a little bit better in pools. That's my hope. That's my biggest hope.